This is the venue that I won the recent European Feeder Cup. Where are we? We're in Belgium. We're at Geistingen, a massive, truly wild water, big waves, huge winds, truly testing. Now, where do you start on a venue like this? Now, I get they can be daunting, but I'm going to show you all the little tips and tricks and lessons I've learned at one of my favourite venues in Europe. Bringing the cameras here, for me, is a huge risk, and I'm starting to feel a little bit of pressure because you never know with this venue. I've been here several times in the past, and it's never quite the same each time. I've seen amazing fishing, I've seen really, really hard fishing, but that for me is the beauty of coming here. We don't know what's going to happen. It could be the most epic film ever, or it could be a complete disaster. As far as bait choice goes, it's all about natural baits. So we've got worms, casters, maggots, pinkies, hemp, which is really, really simple. But the key and what makes the best stand out is using them at the right time. It's never as simple as just piling in casters, piling in worms. Might have to use the worms for impact, might have to cut the bait out at times. It's all about maximising your swim, making the right decisions at the right time, introducing bait, taking it out. Just keep mixing it up just to keep those bites coming. The first job on a venue like this is, where do you start? It's massive. Is it a case of casting as far as you can? I mean, what's in front of you? Now, previous experience of this venue tells me we're on what I like to call the curve, although I think the locals call it the Botteracca. The fish here are very much like Ireland. They hug the bank, they hug the ledges. So here I've got it's quite shallow, then at 30 metres it sort of starts to drop off, and it's still going away from me, but it's not going away from me fast. So I've gone 40 metres, which to me, that gives me 10 metres to sort of get over the little bit of a ledge. What I don't want to be doing is going, say the bulk of the drop off is at 30 metres, going 32 metres, because then it's very difficult to get the feeder up and over. So I've gone 40 metres. Now I have fished this stretch quite a lot in the past, and I've tried 60 metres, 70 metres, 80 metres, and you can definitely go over the fish. So 40 metres is a really nice distance, just past that first ledge, and I think it's a natural patrol route. My sort of vision of how this type of fishing works is, and how the fish respond, they're all off bottom. They're swimming all the time, they're keeping on the move. They sort of have to survive. So the only way you can catch them is to be busy and drag them down. If you put a volume of bait on the bottom and just leave it, they're never going to find it, because that's not the type of fish they are. So to kick the swim off today, all I'm going to put in is 3 large cage windows, ground bait and casters. Just mixed a few casters through the ground bait. So literally going to put 3 in, just with casters. I'm not putting any worms in. Again, I've been here for the Euro Cup and the World Champs. And while worms can be okay, I've not seen a scenario where you can feed them all day. They're more of an impact bait. So I've got worms on my tray, but I'm not going to be using them for at least the first hour. Feeder choice, it's all about window feeders. And if you'd have said that to me 10, 15 years ago, I'd have laughed. But they are so good for big natural venues. The reason being, firstly, they're weight forward. You can be mega accurate, distance is easy. They're literally really, really simple to cast, and accuracy and distance are everything on this type of venue. On top of that, when you're catching at speed, they sink quicker, they're very streamlined. When I'm reeling in, it's almost like reeling a bomb in. There's minimal resistance, so when I'm catching large numbers of roach, I can be that little bit quicker. On top of that, we've now got the cage window. I'm a massive fan of cage, even in deep water. I believe the fish are off bottom, so losing an odd caster, losing a little bit of worm, losing a little bit of ground bait on the way down, it's all good. It's all dragging fish into my swim. That's why a cage is so amazing. But at the same time, the window pins the majority of the bait to the bottom, because I want those fish to see the odd little bits, but end up on the deck where I can catch them. So I'm going to kick off with best hook bait in the Euro Feeder Cup was for a skimmer, and I'm not sure we're going to catch, it's going to be a skimmers or roach or whatever at the minute on here, was 3 red worms. So I'm going to put 3 red worms on to start, smallish red worms. I mean, red worms are more of a sort of skimmery bait, but just want to see what's there. Well, hopefully there's some fish there. The first thing that's apparent is there is a big toe on, bigger than I've encountered on this venue in the past. I've got ounce tips in my rods, which some might be thinking they're a little bit light, but it's not really an issue because all I'm going to do is use the Reaper to try and reduce the tension on the tip. And the way to do that is literally, as I just did then, just tweaking it up the rest just to take the tension off. If I feel the tip gets too much of a bend in it, if we get bream and skimmers, it's not going to be an issue because they're going to get proper bites. I'm not saying they're going to pull the rod in, but if we're dealing with smaller fish, too much tension can be a nightmare. They'll bounce themselves off and all you get is little rattles and taps and nothing will develop. So trying to reduce the tension on the tip as much as possible is really, really important. Quiver tip choice is an interesting one. I've actually gone for 1 ounce tip, which when you look at the conditions, you'll think 1 ounce too light. But I believe by fishing it in the right way, I can catch more fish with a light tip. The bites are smoother, there's less resistance. Resistance is everything when you're targeting a mixed bag of, say, roach, skimmers, and bream. So the light tip, less tension, and by feeding slack all the time, I can keep that tension off. So I can get away with a light tip, but you've got to use it in the right way. Here we go. Right, we are 9 casts in, still on the large window. Chopped and changed hook baits. Thought I had a bite on a caster, but it's so windy, it's hard to tell. So I've just literally switched to double maggot and, I don't know, it's only a couple of ounce, but it's the first fish and hopefully the first of many. And it just sort of shows the importance of chopping and changing hook baits. You have to try and assume there's always fish there, but you're not giving them what they want or how they want it. My setup for this style of fishing, firstly rod choice, 12-foot Aventus Steve Ringer, soft action in the carrier to avoid hook pulls on those sort of soft mouth skimmers, but plenty of power in the butt so I can punch a feeder into a big headwind, anything from sort of 30 to sort of 65, 70 metres. Another thing I will mention is this style of fishing, a lot of the time I'm holding the rod. TVS reel seat, really, really comfortable in the hand. If you're going to be holding a rod for 5 hours, it's really important. It's nice and comfy, sits nicely in the hand. Reel choice mini big pit, plenty of cranking power, loaded with 008 Pulse 8 braid. And then I've got a braided leader of 020, which it's a prototype leader material. Lengthwise, when I'm in the casting position, because I do measure my shot leaders by arm's length, but everyone's arm's length is different. So lengthwise, when I'm in the casting position, 4 to 6 turns of the leader on the reel when I'm in the casting position. So moving to the business end, nice simple running rig. I love a running paternoster. So all I've done, superfine feeder link, anti-tangle, great for bite detection, collapses on the cast, that's the really important part of it. That stops any tangles, but also creates that separation between feeder and mainline, which means when the fish pick up the hook bait, they feel far less resistance and you get a far better bite as a result. So thread on the feeder link itself onto the braid, and then I tie in a loop of 022 pure fluorocarbon. The reason I tie a loop in is to create a slightly bigger knot. I'm going to be casting off the knot. The feeder link is resting on that knot itself, so a slightly bigger knot is an advantage. So 4-turn water knot to tie in the 022 pure fluorocarbon. And I've got 25 centimetres, single strand. That's really important. The days of the twizzled loop are gone now. Single strand, 022 pure fluorocarbon. That's my boom. In the end of that, I've literally got little overhand loop and I attach my hook length via the loop to loop method. Hook length itself, starting off 65 centimetres, 014 pure fluorocarbon to a size 14 pole special. Now the pole special, obviously as the name suggests, already came out obviously as a pole hook, but with feeder anglers and myself included, it's now got a massive following. The big advantage is long point, stops the bait doubling over, but also razor sharp, but very, very durable. Perfect for situations like this. Second fish, and again, another change of hook bait. This was on 3 pinkies. Because it's so windy, it's so hard to read the tip. It feels a little bit bigger, this one. We're gonna swing it. That's more like sort of the average stamp, sort of 4-6 ounce. Bite detection is really, really important. If you're not seeing your bites, you're not catching your fish, you're reeling in, your bait's done, particularly when it's windy, seeing your bites can be really difficult. That's when braid direct comes into its own. Now the term braid direct is slightly misleading because I'm using braided mainline, 008 pulse 8, but also a prototype braided leader of 020 diameter. The braided leader to cast off, maybe to absorb a little bit of abrasion if there's some zebras or rocks on the bottom, but it still gives me 0 stretch all the way to the hook. That 0 stretch, really, really important, magnifies bites, allows me to fish slack as well, as slack as possible, and still see my bites. So for small fish fishing, braid direct, as I like to call it, even though there's a braided leader, is a real game changer. I'm starting to feel like already, although I feel casters are good, I feel like because it's so windy, I might need to chop a few worms. Just a bit more scent in the water. And then I've got the option of a worm head as an alternative hook bait. But I'm gonna have another chuck on 3 pinkies. That bite was 2 minutes 12. But it's really tramming, like a really big toe on, which, like I said, I've never experienced on it before. I'm literally ending up from where my rod is now. Within 2 minutes, it's pretty much at the front end. I can almost once I get the rod into, oh, is that a sign straight away? Yes, another fish. That's really typical. Although it's a small fish, what I was saying about you go ages without a bite, and then 2 really quick ones. It's not obviously the size of fish I'd like, but in a match situation, still another couple of ounce. And it's getting me in and out. And getting in and out on this type of venue is really, really important. It's constant introducing bait, falling through the water. And I'm sort of pulling more fish the faster I fish. Nice to see a quick bite as well, tends to mean they're competing more. Hook length is really important and you have to get it right, and it might mean varying it up throughout the session. But as a rule of thumb, I like to start longer than normal, so normally 65 centimetres, but I might go to 1 metre if I'm not getting bites. Equally, if I feel like there's fish there and I'm not seeing my bites, I'm getting the bait done occasionally, I'll drop it down to 50 centimetres or even 40. So it's a case of hook lengths tied at different lengths, varying it up depending on the conditions, but as a rule, the harder it is, the longer the hook length. Get more separation between feeder and hook bait, and that'll get you more bites. But at least we're starting to get a few bites. There's always that worry on a venue like this, that you're sitting down, throwing a thimble out into the abyss, and you're not gonna get a bite. And like, whilst they're not huge roach, oh, definitely getting better now. Some better fish that is as well. Quick bite again. I think this will be a proper stamp roach. Like maybe an 8-10 ounce fish. That's what I'm hoping anyway. It's weird because I was starting to think worms might be needed to spark it, but it's just sort of sparked itself. Yeah, that's a lovely roach. Separation of feeder and mainline when small fish fishing is absolutely massive. The reason being that the fish feel the resistance of the feeder, particularly shy biting fish like skimmers, and they'll drop the hook bait. Whereas once you've got that supple feeder link, very light, and that's where the super fine feeder links come into their own, that resistance is minimalised. You can see it in the bites, they're smoother, they're more confident, and as a result, I miss a lot less. just waited slightly longer for that bite. Not actually sure what it is. I don't know if it's a skimmer. I've actually done something slightly different as well. I've changed the way I'm loading the window. Obviously we've been catching, but not. Well, I've been catching, and in a match, the stamp's been all right. It's been good weight builders, but there are some amazing fish in this venue. So I'm obviously chopping and changing. It's a skimmer. So what I've been doing is scooping the casters as opposed to actually like putting them into the mix. I'm feeding more casters at the minute. Probably what, £4, £8. As far as ground bait's concerned, these big natural waters, they don't see loads of pellets or anything like that. So we're looking at sweet ground baits, cereal based, but it's deep water. So I need something with a bit of weight to it. A light mix, when there's a big tow on, it's literally gonna vanish out the swim. So a bit of food content, quite heavy, but also dark. The water's clear, these fish are really spooky, there's predators, they're not gonna come over and settle on a really light mix. So dark, heavy, cereal and sweet, that's the key. Something that's really important with this style of fishing is accuracy. Now in a big wind, casting can be difficult. So I'm using a 40-gram cage window. I could get there with 30, but with 30, because of the wind, which is in at me, it's slightly across, you lose accuracy. So 40 allows me to be more accurate, but you've got to be aggressive on the cast. So I've got my marker. Try not to send it too high. So aggressive, sort of lowish cast. The other advantage to 40 gram is it gets down quicker. If the wind was really bad and I was really struggling for accuracy, I'd go up to 50 or even 60 gram, because that's how important accuracy is. If your feeder's going all over the place, then the fish are going all over the place. You can't congregate them. You're not going to get bites. So really important to be accurate. And if a heavier feeder means you're more accurate, then I'll go with it. Something else I tend to do, sometimes you'll cast and the wind will catch it. So if I look up in the air and I think it's going slightly left, I'll bring the rod to my right and I can steer the feeder in the air and I can get it back on course. So rather than just letting it plough a metre to the left, metre to the right, by moving my rod, by moving my rod to the opposite side to which the feeder's going wrong, I can bring it back. Again, another change of hook baits. It's been all about so far constantly changing things up. Pretty sure it's another big skimmer. It shows though that they're there. And some of the underwater filming we've done has taught me quite often there's fish there. We don't know it, but that they are there. Yeah, another big skimmer. But you've got to, lovely fish. Got to give them what they're actually eating, what they want. Absolutely stunning wild fish. Probably £1.5. But I think the important thing to reiterate here is that's probably been in my swim ages, but you've got to give it what it wants. Feeding a lot of casters, and it's picked up double caster. Had I continued with pinkies or worms, I'm not sure I would have caught it. And that's one big thing that underwater has taught me, is that always assume there's fish there, keep working, and eventually you'll trip one up like that one.